je jembo sordan hingmi jang zoner monum jembo ngabjat akrutanngum sando shurmaldo tomba terje janla ki shamsara nechero serni jangamsa jahur tuitib shanda yelarm jeme panso jala soranda gorjer tobam power shenjir lo. Profound and subtle Dharma is rarely encountered in eons. Now we can hear and follow it. May we realize the Tathagata's meaning. To liberate beings, please generate bodhicitta before today's teaching. Now let us begin teaching the poison-destroying peacock mind training. Yesterday, previous verse, I didn't recite the lineage transmission. Actually, teaching in Chinese is essentially the same. And then nyamlen kurda karwa na nagbu shoji chichir mawzu ne wartak jo chimpong chigba na namdagm kala ngir lunga khtur chagbu ngirji hongja jokba na cho chagbu ngarjir Kircht be pombor gimi jonkir tawa la jan chirbi loyang tawa shi. Today we will now continue our discussion. In this outline, yesterday we discussed within Vajrayana the preliminary yoga practice as well as the main yoga practice, the meditation yoga and coming out of meditation. The preliminary yoga is further divided into subduing demons with fierce mantras and the visualizing wrathful deitiesto parts. The first part being covered today is second part, visualizing wrathful deity, because the arrogance of the wrathful terrible one may be produced when you call out the huma of his mantra. You should know that the aggregates are like an illusory city and sound is like a phantom song. As we mentioned earlier, just a moment ago, as we have learned, during the course of our practice, there may be demonic forces who cannot tolerate this and begin various attacks, simply creating obstacles for us. It's like dark clouds gathering densely. At this time, we visualize protective wheels, recite some idam mantras, including the traditional mantras of Yamantaka or other powerful, wrathful deities. In this way, all obstacles will completely vanish into emptiness. This is also very important. During the process of practice, it is necessary to rely on power of wrathful deities to perfect one's own practice. We will continue to discuss the fierce sound of the mantra syllable hum being uttered, because this hum, when I taught about Vajrakila recently, I also cited a scriptural from the Vajra Tantra. I won't cite it here, but you should all remember clearly the merits of the syllable hum. The merits of this hum are also explained in Om Ahom. Moreover, in the profound teachings of Mipham Rinpoche, in his single-syllable practice instructions, for example, the practices of whom, ah, my, whom, and so on, among these practices, it is very profound. Originally, it was included in the His Holiness himself, included it in his own recitation collection. This is important to practice the hum syllable this way. As we mentioned and learned earlier before that, Dorje Drolu, wrathful Padmasambhava, in Dharma teachings revealed by His Holiness, reciting this hum. This hum is the king of all mantras, subdue demons, and remove obstacles. Its merit is immense. So here I will recite the hum syllable lineage from Mipham Rinpoche. Today I translated the short ritual. It can be made available later on, if needed, for those who received empowerment, so that they can practice it themselves in the future. Rangjin goxir yang le kachi ke ranyang dorje zamba namkim do yepe dorje yombe dingzib zat tardang renchin dianzo shektir ji barnir tang ju yishi gozirim barar tuwe nyama tukche hom tangka wuji tamchid larab shep shinlib di hong ji ngirji yarpo ne jinzhi warnab di ba yi tagdam samma ngundo shung quand dans la mubayi renoutre dans devient de toba me per toba togmed njabo samaye. This hum is the king of all mantras. Accomplish all activities. If you recite this hum syllable, all your own appearances or signs will manifest, and you will achieve your accomplishments, siddhis, without obstruction. Mipam Rinpoche goes on to say that actually whatever you wish for, if you want longevity, to overcome obstacles, to gain wealth, to achieve liberation, and so on, any kind of objective you truly focus on can be accomplished. So this is very important. Or you can visualize yourself clearly as a wrathful yidam. Among wrathful deities, such as our Vajrakilaya, we know, for example, or as Yamantaka we have known, or as Yama's enemy, sometimes referred to as Vajrakila indeed. Develop divine pride. But this divine pride can't manifest. It must be held within the view of emptiness. Otherwise, when you visualize, you'll perceive yourself as an existent. As a wrathful deity, and these sentient beings you are subduing will also seem substantially real. That is not entirely correct. You should know that the aggregates are like an illusory city, and sound is like a phantom song. When visualizing your body and others' bodies, you should also see them as illusory, like a dream. There is truly nothing at all that is genuinely existent about them. No, whether reciting hum or chanting mantras, these are appearing without entity. Just like phantom song, they have no true form. If you practice in this way with dedication, your practice will be truly successful. Otherwise, if you become something substantially existent, as I said before, as in 7 points of mind training, in the Manjushri Root Tantra, there was someone named Natsija, right? This person, Natsija, practiced Yamantaka. Using his mantra, he killed many beings. Later, he fell straight into hell. There are indeed many such cases in practice. Misusing the Dharma can lead to the lower realms. There are such teachings. So when we practice the Dharma, we must always maintain compassion and understanding of emptiness. In this way, even wrathful practices will lead to accomplishment. I believe that many of us nowadays, day and night, abide in the profound state and experience of visualizing Vajrakila. At this time, see yourself as dreamlike and illusory. Idam is illusory as well. The mantras we recite are also dreamlike and illusory. Merit and purification are illusory. Achieve the illusory result of Buddhahood. Benefit beings illusion-like. This is extremely important, we should know.
Quand on rend ces maintenant zhuzwa le nguzong mete zhuzwa yishi yin yene yotma myong rang sar khlo chu ki yang zu dembe zhuzwa ngir.
Second part, the yoga of meditation yoga. In Vajrayana practice, we finished discussing the preliminary yoga. Regarding the meditation yoga, recognize the varied contents of your own mind as nothing other than phantoms. Like the mind of a phantom, your own mind has never existed at all, so leave it to itself. When you see ultimate reality, you will be truly free. Here, when practicing the tantric method of meditative yoga, see all external and sentient phenomena are fully appearing without entity, determined to be illusions of one's own mind. These manifestations of your mind are nothing that can truly be identified, whether it is suffering or happiness, beauty or ugliness, or white or black, and all these dualistic phenomena in the world are what beings perceive. When their own consciousness exists in their minds, nothing more than what is displayed in front of them. Just like the white, red, black and white, in our dreams, all sorts of distinct appearances actually, except mind's transformations, do not exist at all. Phenomena in our world is like this. That's it. One person considers someone an enemy, while another sees that same person as their very best friend. For one individual, If his relatives really see him as a friend, his enemies consider him an enemy. Even among enemies, there are different views. What we often see during times of war, for example, Russia, when they say enemy mean Ukrainians. As Ukraine, the enemy refers to the Russians. In the same way, many oppositions in the world. In their eyes, what seems to be a real enemy actually is not, but to others they are not. So before each sentient being's mind, what appears is different. Therefore, all of these are just illusory phenomena. No substantial matter exists, no absolutely solid or truly perfect entity. They are all simply illusions and dreamlike. Inherently, there is nothing. It has always been this way. It's not that it doesn't exist now. When we were born, before we were born, the entire world has always been like this, so empty, so still, and so tranquil. Today, I translated a verse included in a Khenpo's book. It says that Guru Padmasambhava gave such a teaching, body-mind relax without strain, resting in the inherent emptiness and stillness. Chase thoughts to emptiness, that is to say, relax body and mind, don't be tense. And at this time, observe within that inherent emptiness and stillness. You can chase your conceptual thoughts ultimately all the way to emptiness. Then look directly and unwaveringly at what is before you. Take a moment to observe carefully, concentrating fully on its true nature and essence. Whether the thoughts are good or bad, at this time, you will truly come to understand what they really are. Perceive the Dharmakaya, true liberation, and then truly able to perceive all phenomena inseparable of appearance and emptiness, originally having no substantial existence, and is inseparable with Dharma Dhatu as well. This inherent existence is absent, and in fact everything is already liberated. There is truly nothing at all. And anyone can contemplate this. It's just that perhaps not many people actually do so. That Saraha was the same way. I saw, he said, I have Saraha's dohas. I wrote them down and memorized some. The fool contemplates the mind, and wrong views are self-liberated. This means even if one is a fool, when you use your mind to observe your own mind, all wrong views are naturally liberated. I think this is wonderful. The wise will surely understand. How can a fool do this? Actually, for us humans, if we have a teacher to guide us, if wisdom isn't great, you are a fool or an ordinary person. You can also learn to use your own mind. To observe your own mind, all wrong views and all afflictions will be completely liberated. As in the record of the source mirror mentioned, pure thought reveals Tathagata Garbha. One can liberate all and find bliss in cessation. If our mind is pure, we see Tathagata Garbha. Before people call it as remain, some perceive it as treasure. It means the true nature of our mind. When you truly perceive it, liberating yourself and others effortless, and you will genuinely feel the most peaceful bliss. But how many in this world can truly experience the most peaceful? How many people enjoy inner happiness in their lives? Very, very few, any at all, honestly. You could say so. Even among us Buddhists, those who truly look inward and can experience mind neither coming nor going, neither arising nor ceasing, neither permanent. Although many people often say these things as a catchphrase, but actually when they encounter real situations, are you without coming or going? But that's not so. When you're happy, when weather is nice, when you're healthy, it seems easy to speak in lofty terms, to share many profound insights. But when you encounter some suffering or circumstances, even those who pray to the three jewels, perhaps there is no interest or desire. So sometimes we feel a bit disheartened in our practice, but sometimes we also realize that maybe it's not that simple. Even just
learning to use a computer or learning to drive a car. For some slower people might need a long time to practice before they can basically get the hang of it and become more proficient. So with some things, the mysteries of mind, especially for those without the right conditions, with heavy afflictions and deep karmic obstructions, it's not necessarily easy to immediately, and enlightenment may not come soon. Regardless, we shouldn't give up, because even when things are hard, we can find strength to keep going and overcome challenges bravely. Don't people say that now? Previously mentioned, for example, the author of Harry Potter in the West, it said that her manuscript was submitted 12 times, rejected repeatedly. If true, we're unsure, but at the time, that's what was said 12 times. She just kept working hard. After so many rejections, she finally succeeded. If even things in the world like this require such effort and diligence, then recognizing our nature or the state of being one with Buddha, it's not that simple. So we shouldn't lose confidence because of this, or become distressed, anxious, or weary. Next is the post-meditation yoga.
Gangster chirtara jatang, ndirlang kyang, gangda gang masim shiryang murdo par, rang zin chagrdang, ardogbo wogter zi, chan nang chuo xinji xietafta.
Some may arise as enemies and demons, regard them not. Trample attachment to self and aversion to others, view memory and perception like the wrathful Yamantaka. Next is post-meditation phase. Just now we discussed what entering samadhi is like. Just mentioned you perceive the Dharma dhatu, and everything is in fact within that state. There are simply no truly noble appearances. This precisely is the meaning. Here, however, there are still some appearances, but these appearances, you shouldn't see things as inherent, because whether we practice Vajrayana or Sutrayana, when coming out of meditation, appearances arise. But at that time, daily walking, standing, sitting, or lying down, turn everything into the path. It's key. At post-meditation yoga, whatever appears, your enemies or evil spirits and heretics, or demons, ghosts, all sorts of manifestations. You should neither like nor dislike them. You do not be happy. You may think you've mastered Yidam practice. When obstacles and demons appear, you feel especially unhappy. There's no need for that. Don't think or judge. Don't analyze these things, and don't make distinctions. Because if you start making distinctions, for example, if an enemy you resent appears, you'll feel unhappy. When a good friend appears by your side, you'll feel happy. Discrimination generates attachment and aversion. Or when unexpected obstacles and demons appear, you become unhappy and develop anger. When obstacles clear by practicing the Yidam, it seems as if everything has been subdued and you become happy. Then attachment, aversion, self, others, all kinds of appearances arise at this time. All of these can be easily trampled upon and overcome. Don't pay attention to them. It's not that simple. But actually, the main point is to contemplate emptiness. If you understand this emptiness, none of these things will be so serious. Whether it's obstacles or anything else, all can be encompassed within the view of emptiness. If you have even a slight understanding of emptiness, none of these will be an issue. Otherwise, if you just say, I'm not afraid, then that definitely won't work. So this attachment is extremely important. If attachment is destroyed, then there probably won't be any major problems. Isn't it also said in the Nirvana Sutra, those who are deeply attached are always bound by powerful demons of fear, anger, and consuming delusion. Those without attachment can't be bound. If there is no attachment, no clinging at all, demons cannot bind you. So at this time, use the view of emptiness to trample everything completely, like a dream or illusion. Now visualize the wrathful Yidam Yamantaka. Yamantaka, the Yidam, is Dharmaraksita's main practice deity. His principal Yidam practice is this one. In our institute, this is also the case. In a couple of days, I'll recite the lineage for everyone. Back when we first started, the dictionary is called the Yamantaka. We translate it into Yamantakar, but actually is Manjushri Yamantakar. Manifestations of Bodhisattva Manjushri, no real difference actually. But now we refer to it as the Yamantaka practice. We probably started around the 90s or 80s. It should have been the 90s when we began. At that time, we went to Dangshan Sacred Mountain and relaxing in the meadows. Few Vajra friends stood before His Holiness. They started performing the Vajra dance, and one person began first. Later, she truly left a deep impression on everyone. Many people didn't know her name, but they would say, the nun who goes hung hung fat de fat day. They often say this. So that is exactly what we practice every year. Actually, this Yamantaka practice, what we used to call the Vajrabhairava, is now the Yamantaka practice. This is okay. As for Yamantaka at our monastery, Duomang Monastery, which as you may know that, we practice it for 7 days at the end of every December. In the new term of Tertön Deshen Lingpa, there are quite extensive teachings. And below, by the Mani stones, there is a red Yamantaka stupa. Within that, many merits are also described. If you circumambulate the stupa like this, the merit is extremely great. So generally speaking, in general, regarding Yamantaka, for Tibetan Buddhism, many monasteries have new Dharma teachings. Rituals of Tertön Master have old Dharma teachings. Former Tirthans like Ratnalingpa and Padmalingpa, their termas also contain different sadhanas. So regarding this wrathful form of Yamantaka, in the future we should, that I also hope, though there may not be time today, if I have time, I will recite it for everyone. We do this every year because at our institute, just like the esteemed Dharma protector, Venerable Dhammarakshita, we should practice the wrathful Manjushri Vajra with great diligence. It's successful. Many of our Dharma friends, ever since His Holiness began teaching, have been continuously reciting it. Later, I also translated it. Sometimes we also recite it. So in the future, as time goes on, I hope that everyone, through our practice this time, as we can clearly see, should continue to practice the Yamantaka sadhana over the long term. First, protecting yourself and cultivating your own practice. Anyone who has received the empowerment, I think, should really give it a try. His Holiness would sometimes specifically bestow the Manjushri Bodhisattva empowerment. But if you don't have it, well, given the current special circumstances, if you have received some Vajrayana empowerments, you can practice Vajrayana Yidam sadhanas. When we receive 4 empowerments, we can practice generation stage and completion stage. You can practice Dzogchen. There is such permission granted. To be strict about it, practice the sadhana for which one received empowerment. This is very important. Strictly speaking, this is how it should be. But nowadays, for many people, uncertain if they have such karmic connections. Therefore, everyone should be able to practice and apply these kinds of valuable teachings in their daily lives. So in the future, when practicing this Yamantaka sadhana daily, we should also definitely be able to do it in our monastery, because every year I don't know how to practice, nor have I participated in their pujas. But their practice method, it seems there are 72 deities, the entire retinue of Yamantaka. All of them are practiced in our main shrine hall. So this Yamantaka is also a very important yidam in Tibetan Buddhism, especially in our Nyingma. Yamantaka is widely practiced. In the Gelug tradition, it's Vajrabhairava, but it's just a different form of the same deity. Many of the practices are also done together with people often joining as a group to participate. We didn't practice it together. That is to say, it's a manifestation of one yidam. Everyone should make sure to understand it in this way. Next, let's discuss our third outline point now, which is in the preliminary, main and concluding practice. The concluding practice benefiting all beings equally.
Di ce paman rowa mali ba yingi nyamda tezum mepro de nyerang mepro tiji jirda ra shugri mepro dimba niki kyang.
Once you are convinced that all living beings have been your parents, gather them together without hesitation. Free from bias, give them refuge in your compassion and impartially protect them with the 2 truths. Now, let us benefit all sentient beings equally. This simply means that if we speak from the perspective of sentient beings since beginningless time, they have all been our parents, whether by scripture or logic. No matter which aspect you use to prove it, there is no room for doubt. Therefore, all these sentient beings in the samsara, we must recognize they have all been our parents. Of course, for some practitioners of Mahayana Buddhism, while studying the Bodhikaryāvatara, as you know, we have discussed this many times already. So at this point, there shouldn't be anything we don't know. It's just that now it's hard treating all beings like our parents, and we simply haven't accomplished this practice yet. There shouldn't be any other issues. Therefore, we should embrace all beings with equanimity. This is our target. Yes, this is one point. So in this case, how should we uphold this? There are two aspects. One is compassion, another is wisdom. As for great compassion, we should always protect, bless, or support them. In this regard, we should not distinguish between friends and enemies, nor make any discrimination. In the presence of great compassion, there is certainly no distinction between friend and foe. In the Mahaprajna Paramita Shastra, isn't it said and mentioned that no matter how much evil is done to the Buddha harbors no ill thoughts. No matter how much praise is given to the Buddha feels no joy. If a person acting out of deliberate and malicious intent chooses to speak ill of the Buddha, spreading false statements or negative words about him, Buddha has no anger at all. He has no thoughts of aversion or malice as well. If people come to praise or make offerings to him in various ways, the Buddha has absolutely no dissatisfaction whatsoever with anything. Friend and foe are alike to him. It is also stated later on that there is no distinction between friend and foe. Indeed, the Buddha is able to achieve this. But for us, it is truly very difficult and hard to practice. We do not need this standard. We have not yet fully attained Buddhahood. We can't meet Buddha's standards. If we are first graders, we can't possess third-year doctoral knowledge. Then we don't possess that level yet, but gradually let's strive and make progress in this direction. That is also quite simply acceptable. With two truths, we see things as illusions in conventional truth. With ultimate truth wisdom, we see phenomena as beyond concepts and remain impartial. If we possess such great wisdom, we will not be biased. If we lack such wisdom, whatever we do when caring for sentient beings, we inevitably be partial. Therefore, why should we benefit all sentient beings equally in the world? Two reasons. First, from the perspective of conventional truth, all beings are parents since the start. So I must repay their kindness and protect them. Second aspect is, whether it is all sentient beings or ourselves, in reality all are free of conceptual elaboration, all are of an empty nature. This too is true equality. From the aspect of being our parents, all sentient beings are equal. In emptiness, all are equal. If we protect others with compassion and wisdom to protect them, it is entirely reasonable. With great compassion, there is no attachment to friends or aversion to enemies. Wasn't it mentioned in the sutras before that the vengeful, jealous cousin Devadatta once tried to physically harm the Buddha with a sharp blade, while Rahula made offerings with incense? In reality, the Buddha had no attachment or aversion, either in his heart or in his mind, no hatred or favoritism. He regarded all beings like his eyes. Such a state is indeed very advanced. Of course, this is not the same as people in our world today who seem to be indifferent or emotionless. It's not like that. When he has understood the nature of all phenomena, it's kind of wisdom that transcends the dualistic attachments and all suffering of the ordinary mundane world. This state is something everyone should rejoice in and be happy. If one reaches the state, then most truly both oneself and others would certainly be extremely very happy. Let me just see how Saraha put it. I wonder if I can recite it from memory. I haven't looked at the book. There's a line I particularly like: whether you are relaxing in the comfort and safety of your own home or spending time surrounded by the peaceful sights and sounds of the forest, realize mind's nature anywhere. At any time and in any place, one can fully realize one's own mind. Realize mind's nature anywhere. And abide in Bodhi. Samsara is none other than nirvana. As I was carefully writing just now, this seems to be the meaning. If we have attained realization of observing the mind, then there's really no need to leave home at all for any reason, nor do we have to run off to a secluded forest. Nor is it truly even absolutely necessary to forever stay in an emotionally attachment-filled home. In fact, home and a quiet place are, in many ways, you could say, essentially the same. If you have attachment, you won't succeed in either place. No attachment, it doesn't matter. Anywhere, wherever you are, whether you're in a hotel or in a car, for example, at any time, observe your mind and see your true nature awaken your mind. At that moment, you are always abiding in Bodhi state, and you will know that samsara and nirvana aren't separate things. This kind of enlightenment is actually truly very joyful, although I haven't realized it myself. Sometimes when Saraha is nearby and sings his songs of enlightenment, it sounds wonderful. Some people might sometimes prefer to play pop songs. Do, dun, 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 and so on. But some people hearing the songs of realization of many truly great and wise enlightened masters from the ancient past, after singing, it feels like you're entering their realization, which is also quite joyful. So for us as well, when we abide in such a state of equality, your home is the same, city is fine, or in the mountains. It doesn't matter where you are, whether you're driving or stuck in traffic, or whether you're in retreat, or for instance, simply preparing a meal, whatever you're doing, it's really all fine. If you haven't reached this state, it may be difficult. So with a sense of calm and steady equanimity benefiting others. Next comes the merit of practice. The third merit of practice has two aspects. One is the joyful protection of the noble Sangha. The truly great and wise noble ones always joyfully offer their protection. Prevent misconduct. The merit of practice is divided into two aspects. The first one, well,
Ndirtir kumna tubir namtir yin, ndirtir vjina kumchung zimbanchur, ndirtir mala churkyung ngi kuram kembaram zochik tubir jebor nam.
To train in this way is to follow the sage's spiritual biography. If you act accordingly, the jewels will burst into smiles and the Dharma protectors will naturally surround you. Know this well, children of the sage. If we practice in this way, on the one hand, benefiting sentient beings, and on the other, diligently cultivating ourselves, we are Buddhists in name and reality. You are following the Buddha's precious life example, acting accordingly. 1, 2, or 3 chapters we have discussed as mentioned within these. If we do so, in fact, the entire 3 jewels will be pleased. It accords with the 3 jewels, Buddha jewel, Dharma jewel, and 3 jewel. Both the Buddha jewel and Sangha jewel will be pleased. As for the Dharma jewel, its ultimate meaning, as explained in the Sutra of Uttara Tantra Shastra, returns to the Buddha respectfully. If we practice in this way consistently, the Buddha will also be joyful. If we sincerely follow the Buddha and wholeheartedly bring true joy to the 3 jewels, these worldly and transcendental Dharma protectors will protect you day and night. You don't necessarily have to recite prayers every single day. Sometimes when we recite prayers to the Dharma protectors, we need to watch the impact. Whether you live in the city or in the monastery, there are bottles of alcohol and various kinds of meat scattered everywhere throughout the entire area. Because some monastics offering alcohol to the Dharma protectors, but if there is too much liquor, it has a strong smell of it, not like a monk place, but rather resembles where a drunkard sleeps. This is not appropriate. So generally, according to the teachings of some masters, it's fine to offer tea or fruit to the Dharma protectors from time to time, and sometimes add a little alcohol in it. And just a very tiny little microscopic bit of it, like the actual small size of a mosquito's limb, a very small amount of meat, a tiny bit of alcohol, If it's a few drops, the smell won't be strong either. So this is what's called the samaya substances. Rongzom Pandita mentioned that for beginners, some tantric samaya don't necessarily require you to actually eat meat or drink alcohol, especially in our Chinese Buddhist tradition. In some monasteries or in certain places, you took a bottle of wine and ran into the temple. It might not be appropriate. Sometimes even in our own institute, if an area is filled with a strong smell, it's also not good. It's a samaya substance. It doesn't have to be actual alcohol in order for it to be considered suitable or appropriate. Symbolic offerings is okay. When do offerings? It's also fine to occasionally use these things. So if you do this way for the great ultimate benefit of sentient beings, as mentioned above, then the Dharma protectors will also be pleased. Therefore, all Mahayana Buddhists who have generated bodhicitta, you should clearly understand this principle. All Buddhist disciples should know it is important that the author asks what truly pleases the Buddhas. You need to understand what pleases the bodhisattvas and the Dharma protectors. What is it exactly? Just what is it? Even if others trample on my head, I would rather die to please the Lord of the world. Didn't we talk about this later in the way of the bodhisattva? In order to simply please the Tathagata, to prevent harm and benefit the world and sentient beings. Now that I have made this vow, even if these sentient beings trample on my head every day, I am still willing to accept it wholeheartedly. His Holiness quotes this scriptural proof. So what do we often really actually think about in your daily lives and every moment? You need to think of it benefiting sentient beings ourselves, trying to avoid harming sentient beings, benefit them. I think this is the best offering to the three jewels, actually, and the best way to serve the three jewels as well. Moreover, this is also what makes the Dharma protectors and all the white Dharma deities the happiest, genuinely the happiest things ever. Therefore, as Buddhist children who have generated the Mahayana Bodhisattva mind, we should also keep this in mind. We must know what makes all the Buddhas, Guru, Yidam, Dakinis happy and what things do not please them. So on the surface, in terms of appearance, we may do a lot of things, but sometimes these are not necessarily very important. The most absolutely crucial thing is to observe our own mind, which is fundamentally important. A fool observing mind with mind, wrong views self-liberate. Saraha just mentioned this earlier, and I'm sure you will remember. I don't dare call you fools, but for a fool like me, observing the mind with the mind, sometimes the nature of the mind is indeed like this. At this moment, it seems that no matter how the world changes or what kind of turmoil occurs, perhaps for you personally, it becomes a truly beautiful, remarkably different world. Everyone should remember this without exception. Finally, the second point under merit is the fervent contradictory factors. So regarding the fervent contradictory factors, I spit on the shameless way of life. Having considered the heedless life, I view it with disgust. Here the author says these are truly shameful things from this verse. Such deeply shameless, especially very disgraceful acts actually happen, as the author of this work will truly and sincerely despise them, spitting on them with disgust. It's the same in Tibet as well, probably the same in India. When there are generally bad things, some people might even spit, expressing their deep, obvious dislike. Here, these are shameful things. What are shameful things? They are, as you can clearly see, that not benefiting sentient beings, having a selfish mind is shameful. For a bodhisattva, other things may not be shameful. He had nothing to eat and nothing to wear at all. Actually, among us Buddhists, there is a very egalitarian community, including some of our Dharma friends. As long as you have faith, especially in yourself, it doesn't matter if your caste isn't noble, if your wealth isn't abundant, or if your looks aren't great, it's all acceptable. But today, some Buddhists, they all share a very good common trait. They're not this. When you have wealth, others respect you. When you have status, they respect you. If you don't have them, even your own family might at times perhaps look down on you. Buddhists include all types from all directions, as long as they have faith in the Guru and the three jewels, and we all share same language. And in Mahayana Buddhism, we will pay more attention to inferior, those who are dull, poor, or disabled. We will help them as much as we can. For worldly people, many people are besides personal intentions and are not like this. So what is the most shameful thing for a Mahayana bodhisattva? It is in essence having a truly selfish mind that ultimately harms sentient beings. With the heedlessness thoughts, whenever you see yourself, whenever you think of yourself, you become heedlessness. In the past, your body, speech, and mind were not governed by right awareness and mindfulness. This is most detestable. The most loathsome thing, something absolutely disgusting. All who are negligent cannot escape samsara. Isn't this like what's said in Sadharma's Mrityopasthana Sutra? All those who are negligent cannot escape from birth and death. Heedlessness people cannot escape birth and death. So whenever we think of these heedlessness behaviors, some of us are like this as well. We used to be so selfish before, it's truly scary. Honestly, you feel like you should really give yourself a beating, or you feel especially disgusted with yourself at times due to these kinds of actions of your own. Some Mahayana Buddhists, they deeply and sincerely regret what they have done in the past, fully acknowledging their behaviors are wrong, crying and really sad about it. They think, oh, why was I really so terrible? After they met Buddhism and met Guru, they still end up doing such things. So especially when it comes to selfish acts and actions that harm sentient beings, those are detestable. This is the explicit contradictory factors. The contradictory factors are mentioned above the final meaning, which is about this is the hero's actual practice. Part 3 of the elixir made from poison. This explanation is the same as before. Next is chapter 4. The chapter on spreading the Dharma. This chapter also has the initial meaning, the true meaning, and the final meaning. It is mainly divided into 3 aspects. The initial meaning is essentially the same as it was before. In other words, it remains unchanged. There are actually 2 distinct parts, the chapter title itself as well as the homage verse. The peacocks roaming through the jungle of virulent poison. Homage to the Supreme Yamantaka, these 2 parts. The true meaning involves extensively destroying demonic activities, which is destroying the activities of demons. A brief discussion on the behavior of propagating the Dharma. This is the second one of this chapter. Extensive refutation and brief explanation to major divisions. Later on, I will establish the outline. How many sections the first part will have, I don't know. Let's figure it out as we go along. I've been quite busy lately and haven't had time. First, the extensive destruction of demonic activities. This is the first part we need to learn. We'll see how many subsections once we get to it. We'll divide it into however many sections are needed as necessary if required. Among them, in the first extensive explanation, it discusses breaking the strict observance of precepts out of selfishness, strictly keeping the precepts for selfish reasons. This is the first point. Here it says, though you may be as perfect a monk as Upali and as conscientious and handsome as Atrovajit, if you don't lead your parents along the path to enlightenment, you should trample underfoot the liberation of personal bliss. This is precisely about deliberately breaking the strict observance of sacred precepts out of pure selfishness and personal self-interest. What does this mean exactly? Generally speaking, as everyone knows, as is commonly understood, when studying the 3 vehicles, individual liberation vows are very important. The author has already mentioned this earlier. It is very important to take the individual liberation vows. Having truly pure precepts is the foundation of all virtues. This is extremely important. However, if we focus, do not benefit sentient beings or spread the Dharma, if we only focus simply on our own deportment, then it's not that important. So some points raised here are different from those in many other treatises. That's why in the past, when we discussed the wheel of sharp weapons, I have shared this. Now, that was many years ago. Time really does fly by so quickly. So this is still quite special and has a sense of freshness. Here it says that if one strictly observes precepts, then in the history of Buddhism, the purest precepts was Upali, who upheld the precepts. Everyone knows that he used to be a barber. After becoming a monk, he kept Buddha's precepts as carefully as his own eyes. Among all the Buddha's disciples, who were as numerous as the stars, Upali was the strictest in observing the precepts. So for someone like him, from the perspective of individual liberation vows, upholding pure precepts is truly exceptionally dignified, truly worthy of reverence and respect by all. He was extremely remarkable at that time. If one is as strict with the precepts as Upali, that is also acceptable. That also works too. His deportment was quite extremely dignified. Take Bhikshu Ashvajit, for example, if one knows him. This has been mentioned many times before. When Shariputra and Maudgalyayana were still non-Buddhists, they saw dignified Bhikshu Ashvajit and were genuinely amazed at how dignified he truly was. It was through his deportment that they gradually entered Buddhism. Knowing that he was so virtuous, then his teacher, Shakyamuni Buddha, goes without saying. He too, through history, had the purest, most dignified manner, unmatched by anyone. Like Bhikshu Ashvajit, this is like our current degenerate age. Perhaps no one can truly achieve. But if one lacks bodhicitta, then those two are not remarkable. Isn't it often said in the words of my perfect teacher that without non-dual realization of emptiness and merely upholding pure precepts accomplishes nothing. At that time, right in front of Atisha, two devoted bhikshus quietly came to see him in person. When he taught on prajna emptiness, they both covered their ears and ran away. At that moment, Atisha sighed and said, "One truly needs high realization. Otherwise, having ethical conduct is not sufficient." So now there are some excellent Vinaya monasteries which we rejoice in. But if they lack bodhicitta, haven't generated bodhicitta or helped beings, they care about their own deportment, well then that is really just not so noble at all anymore. There was a text called the Chronicle of the Transmission of the Dharma Treasury. The Chronicle of the Transmission of the Dharma Treasury mentioned there was a king who went to pay respectful homage to the stupas of 500 arhats. At that particular time, someone was in the process of introducing them to him. As he was introduced to each stupa, the king showed great reverence and made generous offerings of gold. These were significant offerings. Then there was one, a notable one, called Bakula, who is mentioned in the Amitabha Sutra Bakula. When it came to his stupa, the person introducing them said, Venerable Bakula was remarkable. He never fell ill even once in his entire life, and he lived to be 160 years old. Yet he was content with few desires and had such virtues. But throughout his life, he never even passed on a single 4-line verse to others. Later, the king offered him just a single piece of gold. Then that person asked, when we introduced you to other venerable ones, you made such generous offerings. Why is it that when it comes to the Venerable Bakula in particular, you didn't really value the offering as much, perhaps? Why is that? Then the king said, pausing for a moment, because he only liberated himself and could not transform others. What I mean is, he attained liberation himself but did not guide sentient beings. That's why I offered him less in the end. From a certain perspective, his practice accomplished. Look, he never got sick his whole life. He was content. With few desire is truly remarkable. If one does not benefit sentient beings, if we do not lead all sentient beings toward the path of enlightenment, and only seek liberation and happiness for us Mahayana Bodhisattvas, we should be considered worthy of being trampled upon, worthy of being stepped on. When we look at the actions of Bhikshu Ashvajit, there is also behavior like Upali that can be observed. From the Hinayana perspective, they should be respected and revered. But from Mahayana perspective, because they choose liberation and their conduct is very proper and dharmic, but they always ignore sentient beings who are falling into the pit of fire. In this case, this aspiration from the Mahayana perspective is not something that should really be highly regarded. Therefore, for our venerables in the future, it is important that you behave cleanly. Upholding precepts is very important, but even more important is that while upholding the precepts, you help others spread Dharma. This is extremely important. If this is indeed lacking, this too becomes selfish demonic activity. If you strictly observe precepts, you may become very arrogant. Some monks among our ordained in Tibet have maintained pure precepts for many years. Some are elderly elders. In benefiting sentient beings, they have never given it thought. They practice not eating after noon, maintain very dignified deportment, and spend their whole lives this way. But from author's perspective, you are not remarkable. You haven't liberated anyone either. Just like the Arhat Bakula, as we discussed earlier, if you haven't explained 4 verses to others, not at all. So some great masters in our institute often say, there are some rather selfish practitioners and some truly devoted renunciants who are not selfish at all whatsoever. They don't particularly praise, saying this Lama is remarkable, but if he does not benefit sentient beings, that seems acceptable, as long as he himself is following the path of the Shravaka. The second point is breaking through selfish wisdom.
Rigbyung lam kibim tutopjan, nyambi chagbab lunbo gunga yang, ftambi kirchin shiu malen na nyombi chobdong jinda toror xia.
Though you may achieve great expertise in the sciences and delight in your reputation like a government official, if you don't take upon your head the great burden of the teaching, your reputation should be dismissed like a madman's dance. Some people, especially those who are speaking from the perspective of wisdom, the wisdom is actually really quite impressive. All the 5 sciences and 10 sciences, worldly and transcendental, they have mastered them all. We called 5 Sciences Buddhist Institute. Later, Tibet had 10 Sciences Institutes and others. Among the 5 sciences, there are also the Buddhist inner knowledge and logic, for example. These are included, as well as life sciences and other arts like music and dance, all kinds of fields of knowledge. He has mastered them all without a doubt. He has a certain level of capability and strength. He has already attained the powers associated with the 5 sciences, and this wise person is also, in fact, very well known and widely acclaimed. Many foolish disciples are also very pleased with him, yet the author is still giving him a kind of indirect criticism, whether it's Khenpos, Khenmos, or great Dharma teachers. They have many disciples and plenty of wealth, everything you could imagine. Even the foolish disciples gather around them like stars. There's so many. But they are all rather selfish and very arrogant. Such a group of extremely arrogant individuals, if you do not truly cherish sentient beings and the great responsibility of Mahayana Buddhism, you are deserving of criticism. I once saw something really rather unusual before about Master Benhuan from Hongfa Temple. A reporter asked him about, saying, I haven't actually seen any of the arhats present in your temple, not even once. There are many 18 arhats, 500 arhats. Why don't you build these statues? Master Benhuan replied, no, I don't. I built 11 temples, but in 11 temples I haven't venerated them. I want bodhisattvas who benefit sentient beings. Then the reporter asked, I remember this quite clearly, what if the arhats have objections? What would you do? He said, if the arhats have objections, I would criticize them. Why aren't arhats benefiting beings? If they benefit beings, I could make bodhisattva statues and I could make their statues too. Although the wise Dharma teacher is also a very special kind of, and it might actually be true. Many monks and masters from Tibet and Han place importance on the propagation of Mahayana Buddhism. When the Buddha entered parinirvana, he was also surrounded on all sides by a great number of Shravakas who had gathered. He appeared very displeased with them. He said it's like a person's estate had no male heir to inherit it. It would simply be a truly great pity indeed. Right then, many arhats gave rise to bodhicitta. After that, the Buddha manifested great joy and then passed into nirvana. There are such stories. So if we lay practitioners do not give rise to bodhicitta, no matter how many monastics there are, it is meaningless. If even one person gives rise to bodhicitta, it doesn't matter what their status is. Status could be anything, Some are laity, some are monastics, some may have a rather lowly status. There are all kinds. But if in your heart you truly benefit beings and generate bodhicitta, then you will not regress all the way until the attainment of Buddhahood. This is extremely important. Therefore, everywhere the author differs from other treatises in that
he is not interested at all in those who do not have the Mahayana bodhicitta.
He is very exclusive about this. It is because Venerable Atisha came to Tibet to promote bodhicitta, always speaking of bodhicitta. So everyone called him the refuge guru or the bodhicitta guru. And this is the reason he was given such titles. Of course, since he was so remarkable, his disciples must also have been truly extraordinary.
There is a clear reason for the transmission of this Dharma lineage.
I haven't even briefly mentioned this just now.
If one does not truly and properly uphold the Mahayana Dharma, even if such a person is proficient in everything,
it is just like a madman wildly dancing.
Everyone knows there is nothing worth watching about a madman dancing. However a madman dances, there's nothing to it.
So even if a scholar has mastered all 5 great treatises and can recite them backwards, this field of knowledge, that field, Khenpo PhD, a whole pile of titles, some of us with good academic results.
If we let an elephant carry all those certificates on its back,
the elephant could get tired. So many. But if one is selfish, shutting oneself in their room every single day, when with others, immediately loses their temper and starts scolding them,
then for such a person, your certificates and your knowledge seem to have no real meaning or any genuine significance.
Some people, although they have no reputation at all, are truly and deeply devoted to benefiting sentient beings, toiling like an oxen or horses for sentient beings, dedicating their life to it. Such people are remarkable and great. So, as our author says here,
if those who are especially selfish and intelligent,
then it's like madmen dancing. Such people, in the end, really should be given up. Therefore, the teachings of our Tathagatas, really must not be allowed to decline before our eyes.
It's like a relatively thoughtful and wise son, really.
If the jewels and treasures of his own family are slowly and gradually all lost and completely gone away, he would feel pain in his heart. Similarly, for those who have generated the great Mahayana bodhicitta as a child of the Tathagata, seeing sentient beings suffering so much and the Dharma in such decline, if you do not take responsibility yourself, then you're an unfilial child. So after hearing these teachings, each of us should, from the bottom of our hearts, uphold and protect the true Dharma. Just as it says in the Sagaramati Paripricha Sutra, it also states that if one can recognize kindness and repay the Buddha's kindness, then one must truly uphold the Dharma treasury entrusted by the Tathagata. If we are able to protect the true Dharma, this is the greatest offering to the Buddhas of the 10 directions.
Therefore, I think that each of us, perhaps, if we also follow these teachings,
let's aspire in our hearts. No matter where you are, you can do this.
You can do it even if you are in the city.
You can even listen to teachings while in the car, because nowadays work is simply not easy for anyone. Surviving stuff. Especially after the pandemic, many aspects of survival have fundamentally changed.
So, except for a few people destined to be together,
a few practitioners with past life causes and conditions,
who can live in secluded places,
retreat whenever they want, practice whenever they wish. This is what it means to have freedom in life as well as economic freedom. Such people may indeed have great merit. For most other people,
they are always busy making a living, constantly occupied with all sorts of different things in life. But at this time, your only precious jewel like bodhicitta, if you don't abandon it,
as Saraha said earlier, whether you are in the city or in a secluded place,
there is really no difference.
If your mind is not capable, a secluded place means nothing. Look in the secluded forests. There are so many fierce wild beasts, tigers, leopards, wolves, and many wild animals. Secluded isn't always better. As for the bustling city,
India's accomplished masters all attained realization right in the midst of the busy city. See the 80 great accomplished masters. Most of them, it seems, some seem to be in brothels, some were in local bars, some were in various impure places, for example. So as long as you practice and can observe your own mind, and your altruistic mind can grow, then you can practice anywhere, anytime, in any place or circumstance at your convenience. Thank you.
Bandara Badma Sodargye Bandara Badma Sodargye Bandara Badma Sodargye